Okay, so hello again everyone. Today we're going to be looking at how you name compounds that contain benzene. So another way of saying that is how we name aromatic compounds. So we're going to be looking at naming aromatic compounds, so those compounds that contain benzene. So the word aromatic just means a chemical that contains a benzene ring. So this would be an aromatic compound that we might want to be able to name. This might be another aromatic compound that we might want to be able to name, and maybe something like this as well might be an aromatic compound that we would want to be able to name. They're all aromatic compounds because they've all got a benzene ring in them. So how would we name these? It's very similar to the way that you name other compounds that you've learnt about. The only difference is now we've got to include the benzene ring in it. So this one here, if I just show you, is called methyl benzene. Methyl benzene because there's a methyl group coming off the benzene ring. So there's a single carbon, there's a CH3 there coming off the benzene ring. So this one here, we've got a 2 carbon chain coming off the benzene ring. So this one is called ethyl benzene. And this one here then would be called chloro benzene. So all very simple names there. If we were to maybe introduce something slightly different, so let's go for this here. If you try and think based off that pattern what that aromatic compound might be called, hopefully you can see that that would be called bromobenzene. So each of the examples I've just done there have only got one substituent, so one thing coming off the benzene ring. So what happens, how do we name aromatic compounds that have more than one thing coming off the benzene ring? So maybe something like this. How would we name this thing? Maybe something like this. How would we name this thing? Let's put it there. And maybe something like this. This is going to have 3 coming off it. How would we name something like that? So first thing you've got to work out is what has got the highest priority in terms of the substituents. So there's a bit of ambiguity with this, but I think I've decided, or not I've decided, seen that halogenoalkanes should get the highest priority. So this should be number 1, and then this would be carbon number 2, carbon number 3, 4, 5, and 6. So based off that, maybe if I move that little sign to here, so that's carbon number 1, and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This would be called 1 chloro, and then 3 methyl benzene. So there's a chlorine coming off the first carbon, and then the third carbon is going to have a methyl group coming off the benzene as well. Similarly here, the halogen gets the higher priority, so 1, and then it doesn't matter which way we go. If we go 2, 3, 4, so let's just do that, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that carbon ends up being number 4, and if we went the other way, 1, 2, 3, 4, it still ends up being 4. So now we've got to name it. It would be 1 bromo, 4 ethyl benzene. Okay, and then the last one would be this one here. I would give this number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I numbered it this way, you'll be able to see that the fluorines are numbers 1, 3, and then the methyl group is number 6. But actually there's a way of getting the numbers to be lower than that. So if I go like this, draw the molecule again. So same molecule, and this time I'm going to do number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You see the fluorines are still numbers 1 and 3, so 1 and 3, but the methyl group is now number 4 instead of number 6. So this would be the correct way of naming this molecule. So this should be 1, 3 difluoro, and then 4 methyl, oh, missed out my dash, 4 methyl benzene. So that's the correct way to name that molecule. Maybe it's worth doing one more of those, so let me just think of one more of those. Okay, so one more for practice. Let's do this one here. We've got to decide which would get the highest priority. The halogens would get a higher priority than the methyl group, and then because this halogen has the higher atomic number, so more protons, this one would also get higher priority again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. And then this one would be called 1 bromo, 3 chloro, 5 methyl benzene, which is a massive name, but there's 3 substituents, so you'd expect a slightly longer name. So you might be thinking, why has he done chloro before bromo, bromo before chloro even? And the reason is that the letter B is first in the alphabet before the letter C, so you have to name the substituents in alphabetical order. So B, then C, and then M, all in alphabetical order. And just to maybe make this a little bit more clear, the halogens, because they're both halogens, in order to help me decide which one gets the higher priority, I've got to look at their atomic numbers, and the bromine has a higher atomic number, so it gets the higher priority in terms of naming. Now, when you're studying benzene and as you're looking through different textbooks and things like that, you will see people drawing benzene like this. So using the Kekulé structure, which we know from the previous video is incorrect, and this delocalized model is an improvement on it. So if you do see this sort of molecule drawn, just remember that that sort of shape should be drawn like this. So they've drawn it incorrectly, and it should be drawn like this. You'd be surprised how many benzene rings you see drawn like this. Sometimes for ease, different computer programs will draw it like this, and it's just quicker to do it that way, but other times there's people making mistakes. So if we were to name this one, since I've drawn it, I would do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this would be 1 ethyl, 4 methyl benzene. Like that. Now the last thing I want to show you in this video is some common aromatic compounds that will crop up that you need to be able to name. So I'll draw all 4 of them. So there's the first one that you need to be able to name. There's the second common sort of benzene derivative that you need to be able to name. A third, and then the final one looks like this. Okay, so what are the names of these benzene derivatives? Well, this is an aldehyde, so it's a benzene with an aldehyde directly attached to it, so it's called benzaldehyde. This one is a benzene ring with a carboxylic acid directly attached to it, so it's called benzoic acid. This one is a benzene ring with a nitro group attached to it, so it's called nitrobenzene. And the final one here is slightly differently named, so this one is called phenylamine. So I'd say this one's the only slightly awkward one. The phenyl is a way of saying a benzene branch. So this is an amine group and there's a benzene branch coming off it. So if we had NH2 and a single carbon coming off it like that, it would be called methylamine. When there's a benzene branch coming off, it's called phenylamine. So that's the way of representing benzene as a branch. So let's just do maybe one example for each of naming these things. So there's benzaldehyde, and let's say we've got chlorine coming off there. This would be 1, 2, 3, so 3 chloro benzaldehyde. This one here, so you've got benzoic acid. There's our benzoic acid. Let's imagine we have an ethyl group coming off on the other side. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Doesn't matter which way we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Still end up with that as number 4. So this would be called 4-ethyl benzoic acid. Nitrobenzene. So let's go a little bit rogue here. Let's try something like this. O2N. So the reason I've done O2N is because it's the nitrogen that's attached to the carbon, not the oxygen. So I wouldn't want to write NO2 there, because that would be incorrect. So this one, doesn't matter where I start, because they're all the same substituent. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This would be called 1, 3, 5 trinitro benzene. So just to recap before we finish, we've looked at the fact that benzene, compounds that contain benzene, are also called aromatic compounds. So if you see a benzene ring in a compound, it can be called an aromatic compound. We've looked at benzene compounds that contain one substituent, so there's one thing coming off the benzene ring, and how to name those. And then beyond that, then we looked at when there's multiple substituents coming off the benzene ring and how to name those. The final thing we looked at then were 4 benzene derivatives, so benzaldehyde, phenylamine, benzoic acid, and nitrobenzene. And I gave you examples of how to name different derivatives of those things as well.